So today we will discuss about the fever response. Fever response. Right? What is fever? Basically, this fever is also known as pyrexia in the medical terminology. It's also known as pyrexia, right? So basically, fever is what is basically the increase of temperature. The increase of temperature is basically known as fever, right? So basically there are some substances that trigger the fever, so that substances are known as pyrogens. Now what are pyrogens? Basically pyrogens are the substances, or you can say the chemicals that trigger increase in temperature. Like because of them the temperatures increase in temperature, right? That substance are known as pyrogens, right? Basically we have two types of pyrogens. First are like basically endopyrogens, right? Now what are endopyrogens? Basically the chemicals or the substances which triggers a fever, but they are released by our own cells, released by our they are released by our own cells that are basically known as endopyrogens. For example, let's say macrophages. Like we know this macrophages do phagocytosis, like after engulfing, like after phagocytosis, basically after phagocytosis, or you can say after engulfing, they release some chemicals that basically increase the temperature. For example, they basically release interleukin 1 and 6. They release TNF. TNF stands for tumor necrosis factor. Tumor necrosis factor. And they release alpha interferon, right? These macrophages basically release the interleukin 1, 6, TNF and alpha interferon. These substances are basically known as endopyrogens because they are released by the macrophages, and the macrophages are the cells of our own body, but when after the phagocytosis. Must remember this thing, right? This was one type 1. Now second type of pyrogen which we have is basically exopyrogen, right? Basically they are released by the pathogens that enter into our body, that they are released by pathogen. For example, there is a bacteria and it has entered into our body, and obviously WBC will attack over it, right? So we know, but sometimes what happens, its components, for example lipopolysaccharide, basically in gram negative bacteria, it is present in very thick, in very large amount. So cell wall of bacteria basically, which is made up of polysaccharide, right? So its components come into the blood. They release this like while WBC are attacking on the bacteria, they release some components in the blood. So basically these components basically increase the temperature, they trigger the temperature, so that's why they are known as exopyrogen, because they are released by the cells which are not our own body cells. They are intruders, they are pathogen, they are not the cells of our own body. Basically these substances, like if we talk about interferon, interleukin, they travel through blood, right? Now like by blood they will basically go to the travel through blood, they will go to the hypothalamus. Basically hypothalamus, basically it will regulate our temperature, it regulate our temperature. It basically regulates our temperature. And for example, there is interleukin. So interleukin will travel through what? It will travel through blood to the hypothalamus to regulate our temperature. And basically hypothalamus has heat sensing receptors. Heat sensing receptor. So what this interleukin will do? Basically, this interleukin will inactivate this hypothalamus. Inactivate this hypothalamus. Now what will happen? Basically, this hypothalamus thinks that body is feeling cold. Body is feeling cold, but in the actual reason, body is not feeling cold. Body is body is in normal temperature or something else. But the body will, the hypothalamus will think about this, or you can say the hypothalamus will assume that the body is feeling very cold. So what will it do? It will basically release prostaglandin. Basically, prostaglandin is a hormone which the basic function of it is it does vasoconstriction. Now you know that what is vasoconstriction. Basically, the vessels get contracted in order to it do vasoconstriction in order to to conserve the heat, to not let heat escape from our body, right? And it also increases the thermogenesis, also known as endogenesis, right? It will increase the metabolic activities in order to increase the heat, right? The body will also shiver, it will also do shivering in order to conserve the heat, to not the heat to escape out from our body, right? So body will produce heat, and the fever will be caused, right? So basically, actually now the fever has been caused, the body temperature has been increased. Now basically what happens? The intruder or the pathogen, basically it requires normal temperature, or you can say the optimum temperature. It requires normal temperature, right? It requires normal temperature, plus it requires iron, which is present in our hemoglobin, for proliferation. Now what is proliferation? Proliferation means replication, right? Basically, this intruder pathogen requires normal temperature, or you can say it requires iron for proliferation or the replication. But what happens, when the temperature of our body increases, the iron which is present in our blood, it goes to liver, and it stores over there. If iron storage increase, iron get stored in the liver, right? So there is less amount of less amount of iron present in the blood. But what this pathogen requires iron for the proliferation. So what happens? The virus, or you can say the pathogen's proliferation or replication get disturbs. Pathogens proliferation gets disturbed. Moreover, the enzymes of the pathogen also get denatured. Denature of enzymes of pathogen. The pathogen's enzyme also get denatured, right? And there is also effect on human body as well. If the temperature increase from 105 degrees, so our enzymes will also denature. Our enzymes will also denature, and it can cause the death too if our enzymes got denatured, so it is harmful for us as well. So in this condition, the physicians basically prescribe, like if you talk about a treatment, the physician basically prescribe antipyretic drugs. Basically that antipyretic drug decrease the level of prostaglandin. Basically these antipyretic drugs decrease the level of prostaglandin that is released from the hypothalamus, so that the fever response can be lowered. So basically like here we use antipyretic like aspirin, we use brufen, right? Basically there is a substance known as cyclooxygenase, right? Substance called cyclooxygenase, which basically decrease the level of prostaglandin, right? It decreases the level of prostaglandin. Basically there are three different types of antipyretic drugs which are written in our book. You can check from your book as well, the synth book, right? So this was about the fever response. I hope it's clear to you. If you have any kind of queries, you can ask me in the comment section. We're very glad to answer you guys.